Good morning and welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya here in Montmeló for round 4 of the 2018 FIM CEV Repsol. Over the course of this series, riders take in 8 rounds in 3 different countries, and this 4th race weekend of the campaign will bring us to the mid-season mark in our calendar. Visits to Aragon in July, Jerez in September, Albacete in October, and a second trip to Valencia are all still to come. But as we head to the mid-season phase, the championships are beginning to settle down, giving us our first indications as to who will be fighting for the titles at the season decider in November. The standard format for the CEV Repsol, with races in 3 series: the FIM Moto3 Junior World Championship, the Moto2 European Championship, and the European Talent Cup. Just a single race for the European Talent Cup riders this weekend after their doubles in Estoril and Valencia. 2 races in Moto3 and Moto2. Well, the track here in Barcelona, a well-known venue, of course, and home of the Catalunya Grand Prix in MotoGP. The track itself considered a great testing ground with a balanced mixture of high and low speed corners, medium length straights, and a near 30-metre elevation change. Something of a home ground for several of the teams and riders. For our regular FIM CEV analyst Fran Wild as well, who joins myself, Alex Raby, throughout this weekend's racing. Fran, at a crucial mid-season phase, as I've said, this is where the point standings really start to take shape and come into focus. We're on board with Yuki Cooney here for a lap of this Barcelona-Catalunya circuit.
Yeah, like you say, good morning everyone. Like you say, obviously now we're getting into the real meat of the season. It's starting to really ramp up with a bit of pressure as well for these guys. So yeah, I think, and as well, like you say, this is a home race for many. There's a lot of them on the grid who are either from here or live here as well. And obviously, being the CEV and the Moto3 Junior World Championship, we're in Spain, Portugal, and France. So a lot of the guys from elsewhere often live and train around here. So yeah, big weekend for them, I think, big weekend. But luckily, hopefully, not going to be a rainy one now.
Making our way through towards the end of Sector 2, and then we'll be up towards one of the longer straights on the circuit, through left and right, up towards the right-hander. A slight uphill at this stage of the lap, and then it's on to one of the longest straights on the circuit. This is a real overtaking opportunity in the left-hander at the bottom of this straight.
Yeah, definitely down into the stadium section as well, which is really spectacular, and you have an incredible view as a fan from up there on the hill. You can see so much of the track from up there. It's a really amazing view.
As you said, in towards this stadium section, through the right-handers. 3 consecutive right-handers that will see Yuki Cooney completing the lap here. Didn't have a great qualifying, Yuki Cooney, and he's one of the riders who are going to have to be working their way through from further down the order on the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously 4th in the standings at the moment, so I'll be a little bit disappointed with not having qualified a bit further up, and definitely be aiming to get up in that fight as quickly as possible and get a start and a nice clear run to turn 1, as we're seeing right now.
So the first of our races here this morning then is the 5th of the campaign in the FIM Moto3 Junior World Championship. The class made up of 250cc single-cylinder 4-stroke machines, and so far this season 4 different winners in 4 races, the most open of the categories in 2018. The FIM Moto3 Junior World Championship, the only CEV Repsol class to have participated as a support category to MotoGP last month in Le Mans. So these riders are 4 races into their season, a third of the way through their programme, with 12 races in total comprising their championship. And not only have we seen various different winners, we also have 4 different nationalities in the top 5 positions in the standings. A Japanese and Thai rider right up there. Always great to see riders from Asia making the long trip to participate in this series.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, those guys come from a lot of the Dorna talent promotion programs, such as the Asia Talent Cup. And Cooney also in the Red Bull Rookies this season, along with a few others on the grid here, doing more than just one competition. And it's great to see the progress and then see them arrive on the world stage eventually. They're really paying off, those programs, and people like Cooney and Chantra. Chantra especially this year seems to have taken a real step forward. Last season rookie campaign, and now he's really kicking on and showing some good speed. And then obviously people like Manuel Pagliacci, they're good competition to have on the grid because they're a lot of experience, a lot of pace, and incredible performance last time out as a wild card at Mugello as well in the top 10. So it's really good for those younger guys who are just moving up gradually and taking those steps on the road to MotoGP, to have the guys like Pagliacci in the class as well that they can compare themselves to.
I mentioned there the top 5 in the Championship standings. 4 of them are Honda mounted. The series leader is one of 2 KTM riders inside the top 10. That's Spain's Raul Fernandez, 3 podium finishes in 4 races so far. He'll be among the favourites again here today. Let's take an opportunity to introduce you to some of the riders, starting towards the front row of the grid. Pole position will be Manuel Pagliacci, as you mentioned there, Fran, 21-year-old, 2 times Italian Moto3 champion, pole sitter and race winner in Estoril. He's currently second in the 2018 standings. Made a Moto3 wildcard appearance at Mugello last weekend and took a creditable top 10 finish. He takes his 2nd pole position of the campaign.
Yeah, I think Pagliacci's paying the price quite a lot for a difficult first race in Valencia. And other than that, I mean, the gap's only 20 points, so it's certainly not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination if he is looking to take the title, which obviously that will be his goal. But like you say, twice Italian Moto3 champion. He's got World Championship experience as well. And yeah, I think he's one of those guys on the grid that now has to really show what he's got here and show that he can make that step back up to world level and really challenge there. So it's a good season for him so far. Like I said, 20-point deficit, nothing too bad. And now we're ready to crack on and try and close that gap.
Second on the grid, Sergio Garcia on the number 11 junior team Estrella Galicia bike. The 15-year-old in his 2nd full season in the CEV Repsol, an impressive 7th overall in 2017. Already twice a race winner, including victory in race 1 at Valencia. Has been turning into something of a win or bust rider, though. Had a couple of non-finishes in the first 3 races of this campaign, but enjoyed his best qualifying of the season and first front row grid start in 2018. There he is, previous best of 5th on the grid in Valencia, so to finish up on the front row after qualifying here yesterday, great effort from Sergio Garcia.
Yeah, definitely another one of those little Montmeló wonders, really, part of this Estrella Galicia Montmeló competition, Mark VDS structure. And yeah, they have quite a few riders of note. Obviously, Alonso Lopez showing again some great pedigree in the World Championship this year, having just moved up. Jeremy Alcoba as well, great pace down here in the Moto3 Junior World Championship. And Sergio Garcia, like you said, consistency is something that he definitely needs to work on. But so far, I mean, the main thing that you need at first when you are just starting your career and you're on this level is you need to have the speed. And the consistency is something a little easier to work on, and then make sure you can iron out those bumps and stay a bit calmer under pressure and bring the result home.
Another young Spaniard, 3rd on the grid, completing the front row. Aleix Viu, the 17-year-old, runner-up in the Red Bull rookies for each of the last 2 seasons. Only managed 1 finish of 8th position from the 2 CEV Moto3 races here in 2017, but he's had an excellent start to 2018. Pole sitter at the last 2 rounds, winner last time out in Le Mans, and he currently sits 3rd in the championship standings.
Yeah, he had a really stunning performance in Le Mans, really stamped some authority on that race, and obviously there's no better stage to do it than when you're racing alongside MotoGP. It's in some ways the biggest race of the year for these guys in the Junior World Championship. So if you'll be feeling pretty happy coming into this race now, home round, back on home turf, and looking to try and do that again, I imagine.
Look now at the 2nd row of the grid. Leading these riders off will be yet another Spaniard, Jeremy Alcoba. You mentioned the junior team Estrella Galicia. This 16-year-old was a race winner in this class in 2017, finished 5th in the championship overall last year. Crashed out from the lead at the opening round of this season, but he's had 2 top 10 finishes, including a podium since then, and enjoyed his best qualifying session of the season. So far this season, yesterday, his previous best just 6th in Estoril, so he starts 4th here.
Yeah, I think he'll be wanting to, again, get a little bit, you know, get some big points on the board now and kick on. And here you can see Raul Fernandez. And just to his left there, we saw a glimpse of Nico Toral, obviously former 125 world champion. And now part of that really plays a big role in that Angel Nieto team throughout, you know, this championship and also in the Moto3 World Championship. A lot of expertise, a lot of experience in obviously 125s and lightweight class in Grand Prix racing, then in Moto2, and then also even in World Supersport was a podium finisher there. So he's a pretty valuable guy to have next to you on the grid, I think, when you're getting ready to race at home.
Raul Fernandez down in 5th. A bit of a surprise to see the championship leader as far back as that in qualifying. He does have a better race record than single lap pace, to be fair. As we move on down to 6th position, Stefano Neppa of Italy. The 16-year-old is in his 3rd season now in this Moto3 Junior World Championship, so very much aiming to kick on this season. Yesterday, though, was his best performance of the campaign so so far. He hadn't qualified in the top 25 in his 2 previous 2018 appearances. He's up in 6th here today, competitive last year, and a top 10 finisher on a couple of occasions already.
Yeah, Nepa's one of those where he needs to definitely stay cool off the line. He's in a position that he's not been in really so far this season, and just needs to take a deep breath and deal with the pressure and just have a nice clean start, clean run through the first few corners, and then just settle into the pace, because he's obviously got good pace this weekend, and he wants to keep it nice and calm and controlled at the start and make sure he can get a result for that.
Third row of the grid with a little bit of a different look to it, because we had 2 riders penalised. Marc Garcia actually qualified up in 6th, and Nicola Fabio Carraro qualified up in 8th, but both of them have been demoted down the order. Garcia to 17th and Carraro down to 19th. So you saw there Somkhiat Chantra, he's promoted up into 7th position, and Kevin Zanoni of Italy is promoted up to 8th. Inside the top 10 in qualifying for the first time yesterday at his 5th attempt since joining the Moto3 Junior World Championship. 17-year-old, just a single points finished his name in this series. He'll be wanting to kick on now from a promising grid position here in Barcelona. One of his best performances so far in this class. Yeah,
definitely. He's another one like Nepa who wants to just keep it cool, keep it collected, and try and get some solid points. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be 8th. It doesn't have to be 6th where they've qualified. Just get some solid points and have a good race, and really, you know, make that qualifying sort of pay off for them. And here we have Dennis Onchu. I think it's Onchu. We asked them this last time out. There seem to be a few different pronunciations across the board. He's the reigning Asia Talent Cup champion. Obviously, Chantra on the same row of the grid was the champion last year, or no, the year before, sorry. And yeah, these guys obviously now really shown some good form and good pace in the CEV as well. So that's great to see that paying off for them.
Take a look at the grid in full then. 3 Spaniards in the top 4 positions, but it's a familiar name on top. Is Manuel Pagliacci, who will lead them off here then. Sergio Garcia and Aleix Viu alongside. We've introduced you to these riders. Making our way back now towards the 4th, 5th and 6th rows on the grid. I already said we had a couple of surprises in qualifying. Power-packed 3rd and 4th rows of the grid. Zanoni, Onchu and Ramos coming through from there. Not a good qualifying for the Asia Talent Team riders either. Ayagura starting down in 14th, 5th row of the grid. Yuki Kuni, as we already said, all the way down in 18th. Just a second covering the top 16 in qualifying. Charlie Nesbitt, as you can see, the lone British rider starting further down the order. 14 different nationalities on this grid of emerging talents, and incredibly in terms of lap time, the top 40 were within 102% of the leader's fastest lap. A small statistic there, but the point is there's very little to choose between the riders battling outside of the top half of the field and those within the championship points. Remember, only the top 15 in each race will score, so more than 2/3 of this grid will leave race 1 empty-handed. Bit of a gap to the final 5 in qualifying. All of these riders learning their trade, of course, but restricted running for Sayami, Ripamonti and Georgi, who missed Q2 altogether. That left those riders with a lot of work to do. On Chu and Baltus, after a penalty applied following warm-up, they start at the back of the grid, so a lot of work to do for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think for the likes of Baltus, obviously we'll be wanting to make some good progress up from there, fairly new to this class now. But Kanonchu especially, you know, he's the points leader in the Red Bull rookies. He's got some good form. He's had some good pace here as well, a few points finishes, but especially they were very competitive, the 2 Onchu twins, when they first moved up in terms of pace, but then just, you know, let it slide a little bit, a couple of mistakes in races. But I think that should be fairly interesting to watch Chan come from the back of the grid and see what he can do, because he's definitely out of position, as you could say, for his pace this weekend.
Yeah, Chan Onchu, the 14-year-old from Turkey, 3rd place finisher you were mentioning the Red Bull rookies there, the 2017 championship, and as you said, the current leader of that series this season. He's had a win and 2 second places as well. Just 1 top 10 finish in the Moto3 Junior World Championship in 2018. So having moved over from the Asia Talent Cup, although he qualified well in Valencia, we know he has the single lap pace, just hasn't quite worked out for him in terms of race strategy or indeed race results so far this season.
Yeah, not quite. I think him and his brother Dennis, both racecraft is one of the things that they will be learning a lot from Akiayo as well. Obviously, Akiayo, they've got this team in the Junior Moto3 World Championship, and then also obviously that structure now pretty much leads all the way to MotoGP. And it's, you know, that's super, super valuable for them. Have someone like Akiayo with so much experience, so much expertise, so many championships and champions as well, that it's should be good input for them. We should see good progress, I imagine, because they've got the talent, they've got the speed, and now we're just waiting to see them take up that learning curve and just show us every week and move a little bit further towards the front, I think.
We were talking about some of the Asian riders coming through. Yuki Kuni's also going to have his work cut out to make his way through from further down the order in his second season now in this championship, and racing in the Red Bull Rookies Cup as well. He was the race winner in Mugello last weekend. He's got some form, but he's going to have his work cut out in this one.
Yeah, definitely. He'll be flying pretty high on race confidence, but he'll need to move forward in this one, so we'll have to see how he gets on.
Building up then to the opening race of the day. Round 4 of this FIM CEV Repsol comes from the Barcelona circuit. Green flag at the back of the grid. Tension high, a packed grid. We've got several riders out of position going to be trying to work their way through from further down the order. See which of the riders on the front row makes the break as we get underway. A bit of lift there from Garcia, but he's managed to get away pretty well nonetheless. It's the number 11 then who leads them as they come down towards the right hand of the first turn here in Barcelona, but there's a pack swarming behind them. They're 3 abreast down into turn number 1, and it's the number 52 of Alcoba who's managed to hit the front. So strong start from those Estrella Galicia bikes who are in first and second.
Yeah, definitely. That was a full Lorenzo move there for Alcoba, straight through from the second row. Bit messy for those guys on the front row there, and like you said, big wheelie from Garcia off the line. And Pagliacci initially looked like he was going to get the better start, but obviously not down into the corner. And Alcoba now leading them around for the first lap, and all clean so far, which is always commentator's curse.
Curse of the commentator then as we make our way through turn 3. I was just going to say that Pagliacci from first on the grid has managed to drop his way down to third position, so not a good start for him at all.
So yeah, we've got Kiefer Racing Machine there in the gravel. That's unfortunate. Obviously, it's a bit of a heartbreaker when you're out so early on as well. It's Sasha DeWitz, I think, who's gone down. Yeah, so as you can see, frustration is punching the gravel. But at least we've got Sunday of 2 races for these guys, so they'll get another chance later on to try and take a better result.
And he wasn't alone in going down either, as you can see from the graphic. Jose Julian Garcia has gone down at the moment. The marshals trying to wrestle with that machine as they go side by side now for third position. It looks to me as though Pagliacci's now dropped down to 4th place. So he's dropped effectively a whole row as the front 2 start to break away now. And a frustrating start for Pagliacci. As I said, he's gone down to 4th position. It's Aleix Viu who has moved through into 3rd position. And now it's up to Sergio Garcia, who's really starting to mount an attack on the tail of Jeremy Alcoba. And that race lead might not last for too much longer because Garcia is going alongside him down the start-finish straight. It's a long one for these riders, but it looks as though Garcia might be able to pick up the race lead. He's got the inside line. Garcia is going to try and stick it out down the inside, but in the end he gets swamped as they go into turn 1, and that's the slipstream advantage from further back down the order.
Yeah, definitely. That didn't quite work out how he was imagining it, I don't think, but Alcoba there, pretty ice cool in the lead, keeping it all calm and collected into turn 1. Obviously, with the long straight here at Catalunya, it's quite difficult to escape, but it is possible.
Zanoni coming through down the inside now to become the new race leader. He was the one who charged through from the pack and come up to 2nd position, cutting through on the inside line. Kevin Zanoni is your new race leader. Really came from nowhere because he was out of the top 4 positions early on. Slipstream advantage paying dividends for him, and that's another position change as Pagliacci tries to fight his way back through. So the 2 Estrella Galicia machines who held the top 2 positions at the end of the first lap, that didn't last for too long at all because it's now Zanoni who is your new race leader. Pagliacci fighting back into 2nd position. It's Jeremy Alcoba in 3rd. Sergio Garcia still trying to fight his way past his teammate, but while these 2 were brawling, 2 riders have managed to burst ahead of them.
Yeah, definitely. You can see a few people there just going onto the green stuff at the edge of the track. They need to be careful with that. If they do that too many times, they will get a penalty for track limits. Oh, that was quite a late dive there. Oh, that looks like a crash there for Zanoni, and luckily he's up and okay. It's always difficult when someone goes down in the middle of the pack like that. It's a really, really risky situation, but luckily straight up there and well, not no harm done, but at least just in the race.
Right on the racing line as well for Kevin Zanoni, and that's enabled the race leader to break away ever so slightly. Is he without of that towing distance now as they come onto the start-finish straight to complete lap number 2? We've already had a few different race leaders, and the early race leader, the leader early on in that lap, obviously tumbling out and tumbling down the field, as you said. He did get back up. Now we're going to see them all going side by side again into the first turn. Battle for 5th position, but breaking clear of them. 0.8 of a second clear, in fact, at the end of lap number 2. Manuel Pagliacci, so a strong effort from him. Sergio Garcia managing to make his way through. He's now up to 2nd position.
Yeah, definitely. The gap was just over a second there for Pagliacci. If he can make a break of this now and they can't try and hunt him down, then this could be exactly what he needed. Just that chance to get a little bit of fresh air, like you say, just out of that slipstream on the main straight, and then he could be able to take this. Because, like I was saying before, it is quite difficult to break away when you have such a long straight like you do here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. But a few people have done it before, like Maverick Vinales had a huge lead when he won the Moto3 race here a few years ago, and Alex Marquez did the same. But it looks like Garcia is aware that there could be a risk of that happening, and is just starting to really push on and try and hunt Pagliacci down again.
While we've been focused on Kevin Zanoni and his oscillation through the field, Somkiat Chantra and Ayagura have both come through brilliantly up into 4th and 5th positions, and leading the train, really. The front 3 have started to break away. In fact, we're going to have an overtaking manoeuvre down the inside now for 4th position. Through comes Agura on Somkiat Chantra for that 4th position. So a well-executed manoeuvre. But as you said, the race leader trying to break away. Garcia and Raul Fernandez in particular trying to go with him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Chantra's had a good start. He's a little bit up from where he qualified, which is always positive. But then, like you say, Agura really made some great progress and really cut through the field to get on the tail of this front group. And then Montmeló quite close behind as well there. Through there looked like it might be a little bit overambitious, but not so bad. And now you can see Fernandez as well, a little bit of a silent progress through the field for him, but he's right there, which is exactly where he needs to be, because obviously, you know, he's got the points lead. He knows that he's got 20 points in hand compared to Pagliacci, but it's important as well, just keep tabs on it and keep himself on the podium. That consistency is what can usually win you a title.
Mentioned Wong Tananon. Well, he's managed to work his way through and up into 4th position down the start-finish straight from 6th to 4th, and that's the advantage of the slipstream once again that we were talking about, relegating the 2 riders directly behind him. And now Jeremy Alcoba's starting to come back through the field. A new fastest lap of the race from Ayagura, as you can see there. He's down in 5th position at the moment, having been passed by Wong Tananon down the straight.
Yeah, definitely. Agura so far has had the superstar start, really. It's exactly what he needed. Obviously, podium finisher. He's a race winner last year as well. And he's had a bit of an inconsistent start to the season. So the important thing for him is now to just bank those big points more often and a few fewer mistakes, and just make sure that he can really capitalise on his pace, because he's got great pace. He's very fast. He's very competitive in this class. But just a few DNFs and just a few mistakes have really made his championship position suffer a little bit. So it's great to see him making some good progress in this race and getting up in that fight. As you can see now as well, Garcia has really closed in on Pagliacci, so it looks like we're going to have a Moto3 Classic and not have anyone escape at the front too much. But you never know, 4 of 16. We'll see how it starts to play out, but that's good for the race and for the championship, obviously, as well.
Dennis on Chu there, making his way up into 9th position. Just behind 10th place is a bit of a gap to the rest of the pack, but as you said, a train really forming early on in this Moto3 race, as perhaps you'd expect on the basis of form. And Manuel Pagliacci has been sucked into that group behind him now. Sergio Garcia in the slipstream in 2nd position. At what moment will he decide to duck out of it? He's got to be careful here, because he's got Raul Fernandez trying to come through as well. Fernandez is going to go onto the standard racing line. Garcia moves to block, and there's no change this time around into turn number 1.
Yeah, obviously they've not let him get away, but maybe if they don't want to lead at the moment, if they're happy with the pace of Pagliacci, they might not, you know, try and make that move, or maybe they think it's not worth the risk at the moment. But Pagliacci's doing a good job. It's good pace out there, you know. There's a fair group fighting at the front at the moment, but it's not too crazy. Everyone so far keeping it fairly clean and calm. But yeah, obviously the slipstream here can leave you with 4 or 5 riders wide into turn 1, and it all gets a little bit messy.
New fastest lap of the race from Stefano Nepper, working his way through now from 8th position and just ahead of the tail of that group, as I was talking about. Dennis Onchu trying to work his way through in the top 10, making a break as we go side by side through the left-hander. I think that's Alcoba losing out to Somkhyat Chantra, fighting his way back through. Alcoba really has been oscillating through this field. Started in 4th position on the grid, and he's right within the middle of that train where those position changes are so frequent.
Yeah, definitely. You can see a little look behind there from Sergio Garcia as well, obviously trying to keep tabs on how big the group is and who's likely to try and fly past him next time around that slipstream. Oh, that's pretty late there from Alcoba, but nicely done. I imagine he'll get that taken back quite soon, or at least attempted, because they tend to switch positions quite quickly in Moto3, which is what makes it so good, but also keeps you maybe slightly too far on the edge of your seat sometimes.
Iogura relegated down back to 6th position then, as those two swap and change for P5. They've got to be careful that they don't hold themselves back too much, because the top 4 will be only too eager to break away as we come through to complete lap number 5 and into start lap number 6. And it's Pagliacci who still leads, the pole sitter. He dropped back initially. Now he might well drop back again, because he's got 5 or 6 riders right on his tail into turn 1. Again, he holds the line, but this time it's Wantananon who makes his way through. He's now up into 2nd position. Those Estrella Galicia bikes down to 3rd and 5th respectively. It's Garcia 3rd ahead of Agura, and then Alcoba just keeping a watching brief directly behind. Wantananon really going after the race leader now, Manuel Pagliacci.
Yeah, definitely. Pagliacci's so solid in that braking zone into turn 1. They just they'll have to create something a little more special than just slipstream and then pulling out, I think, to take that from him. But obviously experience is really paying off. But now, yeah, Wangtananon's made some really great progress. He's got some really great pace and running right at the front. We'll have to see if he makes an attack soon for the lead, or whether he's happy to sit there and use Pagliacci to keep him in that fight.
Iogura fighting through as well. He's up into 3rd position and looking set to challenge Wangtananon now for 2nd place. And then directly behind are those two machines, Garcia and Alcoba, who have been within the top positions as someone shoots off there onto the runoff. That really is exaggerating. Just you said earlier on, a couple of the riders being a little bit too liberal with the use of exceeding track limits there as Wangtananon loses 2nd position. I said Ogura was on the march. He's come through for 2nd.
Definitely. You see big moment for Chantra there, running into the green just on the outside of the curb. He had another one of those like that, similar anyway, in Le Mans. Just a big out of the seat wobble, and then managed to collect it all up. But yeah, hopefully these guys, they do need to be a bit careful of this. I think we mentioned this pretty much every race in this series, but it is something fairly important, because especially last year with Dennis Vodja, even here, we had some big drama at the end of races with penalties applied for track limits, etc. So it is an important thing, and they are fairly strict with it, because obviously throughout also the MotoGP World Championship, it's an important thing that does get penalties applied for it. So they just, you know, if you make a mistake and you don't gain from it, that's okay. But if you start, you know, just cheekily using a little bit more of the tarmac than you should, then that's not.
In now to lap number 7. Still Manuel Pagliacci, the pole sitter, who leads. He's been defending well. We've said it over and over again. Great job down into turn number 1 in that heavy braking zone at the end of the longest straight here in Catalonia, holding his position and holding firm. It's Agura and Wangtananon directly behind at the moment. Agura after that overtaking manoeuvre on Wangtananon, who'd fought his way through quite brilliantly to 2nd position. Down the inside now, the number 11, Sergio Garcia, trying to defend position against Raul Fernandez. So it looks as though Fernandez has made the decision that it's now to try and put a spurt on before he gets too far behind the race leader, because Pagliacci is trying to break.
Yeah, definitely. I think these guys, this group down to Dennis Onchu in 9th, they seem to be having fairly... They seem to have a fairly comparable pace, and they're all, you know, again, a couple of them there, a little bit wide there. We'll have to see if Marc Garcia can join this fight. Obviously, the more that they squabble at the front, the more chance the guys just behind have to catch them. But so far, they've not done anything too crazy to really hold themselves up, just a little bit here and there. But I think Ogura is looking fairly threatening now. I would not be surprised if he really does try and move at the end of the main straight there. We'll have to see if Pagliacci can hold him off as well.
A few riders were looking down the inside into that braking zone at the end of sector 3 and down into turn 10, but nobody made a move there. It's down the start-finish straight that the majority of the moves have been attempted so far here today. But again, Pagliacci, good speed, exiting turn number 14. He tries to carry that down the start-finish straight. He's got the number 11, Sergio Garcia, braking to the inside line at the moment, fighting with the number 52, Jeremy Alcoba, who sits in 4th position. But again, the riders holding station. Nobody too keen to potentially hold one another up or get involved in a battle when they can hold station and then make that break in the latter stages of the race.
Yeah, definitely. Agura seemed to lose out quite a lot in the exit of that final corner and just wasn't quite where he probably would have wanted to have been to try that move. But at least, again, the slipstream worked for him and kept him in second. But they're all looking a little bit keen now behind to get past him.
It's Montmeló who's got swallowed up a little bit there, ending up relegated down to 4th position. It's Alcoba who's come through for P3, and Alcoba who now dives for the inside line to make a pass on Agura to come through for second. Agura tries to cut back to the inside line, but he's not able to make it stick, and that's 2 successive manoeuvres for Jeremy Alcoba, who comes through to complete sector 2 up in 2nd position, ahead of Agura in 3rd, and Montmeló relegated to 4th.
Yeah, like you said, it was Montmeló who lost out a little bit there, and in that braking zone, they seem to all be being quite cautious and nobody really willing to make that sort of a dive bomb maneuver, which is good because, you know, 8 of 16, there's a lot of the race to go. You don't need to be taking silly risks at this point. But these 2 guys now are really fighting it out. They just need to be careful that they're not going to lose tabs on Pagliacci, because there's been a few times when they've really hindered each other, and yeah, it always gets risky because Pagliacci, obviously, like I said, so much experience, obviously great pace, and on pole, he's a guy who's going to be able to really capitalise on that if he's given the chance.
Agura pushing on here, having made his way past Jeremy Alcoba to recover 2nd position and on towards the start-finish straight. Let's see what Agura can do now to try and challenge Manuel Pagliacci, whose team are advising him what's going on behind. Whatever you do, don't look behind, because there's a huge train of riders directly behind the Italian. And now diving for the inside, it's Agura. And finally, we have a position change for the race lead. Cutting back into the racing line, it's Pagliacci as they battle offline slightly there for 3rd position. Jeremy Alcoba managing to hold on to it in the end by that unconventional line ahead of Montmeló, who is still in 4th position. But a change of race leader, we might get another here, because Pagliacci cuts to the inside and fights his way back through. Great dicing already here for the race lead.
Yeah, definitely. You could see that time round Agura got a much better exit and was right with him through that final corner. Almost looked like he was tempted to try a Rossi Catalunya 2009 there down the inside, but not quite. And now already shuffled down to 3rd, you see. It's all getting a little bit dicey now. But Pagliacci obviously has decided he wants to lead this one. He was straight back into the lead. So we'll have to see. Again, Agura and Alcoba, not sure there's any need yet, lads, but it's making for a great race so far anyway.
Looked to me as though Alcoba gave a bit of an apology as he relinquished that 2nd position, so he knew he'd ended up on the naughty map there. Jeremy Alcoba relegated down to 3rd position. Once again, Montmeló trying to come through now down the inside as they head towards the major braking zone, the 2nd largest braking zone on the circuit, into turn number 10. But for the moment, the riders holding station. It's Pagliacci out in front. It's Agura in 2nd, Alcoba in 3rd, and then Montmeló in 4th position. And we've got a little bit of a break now starting to happen behind the top 7. So Marc Garcia and Denison Chu have slipped back somewhat from this lead group.
Yeah, Garcia's obviously managed to catch and pass Onchu, but there's still a fair gap, like you say, to between Garcia in 8th and Nepa just at the end of that front group in 7th. So have to see if he can catch that up. But Dennis Onchu is going to be a rocket on the straight because he's a very small rider and he's right tucked in the slipstream there. So we'll have to see. Maybe these guys will be fighting it out for a while.
Number 53 we're talking about there, Denison Chu, who is on the tail of Marc Garcia challenging for 8th position. This is the lead group at the moment, the lead group of 7, as we've said. They held station more or less there into turn number 1, but Agura already sizing up a move on the number 32 machine in 2nd position, while Jeremy Alcoba attempts to recover. Alcoba's been action-packed throughout this race, oscillating through that lead group as far back as 6th and as high as the top positions in the race as well. Sergio Garcia, in all of that fighting for 2nd position, has ended up being relegated down to 6th. Raul Fernandez making up a place, although that might not last for too much longer because he's still under pressure from the number 11 who's trying to get back through for P5.
Yeah, I think as well, Stefano Nepa just sat at the back of this group you don't really need to be involved in this fight too much if you've got the pace to stay with them. Obviously, like you said, we've got 10 of 16 laps so far under our belts. There's quite a long way to go, and you know, as long as you're in this fight at the front, the situation can change so quickly on the last lap or last 2 laps that you know, just sit there, stay calm, save your tyres, and check out what everyone in front of you is doing. As long as you can stay with them, that's the most important thing. And there we saw as well in the junior talent team box there, Alberto Puch. There we are back, and Hiroshi Oyama. So I think they'll be pretty happy with Agura. Obviously, amazing progress through the pack after a bit of a difficult day yesterday, really. Not really what you'd expect from Agura. He's got a lot of experience, podium this season already, and also obviously race win last year. So I think his CV was a little unhappy with where he was on the grid, but so far, great pace, some great moves, and right in the fight for the win here.
Up the way from 14th position on the grid, Agura currently sitting in second. Jeremy Alcoba tagged to the back of him as they come down the start-finish straight, more than half the way through this race, and it's settling down to an extent with a battle for the top 7, although just as I say it's settling down, Wong Tananon gives a sideways swipe to the number 32 Agura and pushes him down to 4th position, and it's all changed. Pagliacci, Alcoba, Wong Tananon and Agura, curse of the commentator somewhat for him there, from 2nd to 4th.
I think I should maybe just stop talking, because I seem to have a very negative effect on most of the field. But no, obviously Wong Tananon there, like you say, kind of really going for the full leg dangle there. And yeah, you know, that yellow on there obviously is rubbing up on him a little bit. Doctor's dangle there, trying to make his move through. But it's all getting a little bit scrappy here now. Agura seems to have lost out a little bit, trying to tag onto the back of that group. But, you know, Wong Tananon looks like he's here to definitely fight it out today.
Second position, the closest battle at the moment, because Agura's fallen, tumbled to the back of that group. He's got to try and pick himself back up now and challenge once again. But the fight seemingly, for the moment at least, is over second position. Wong Tananon coming through turn number 9 and up onto the second longest straight on this circuit, trying to tuck himself in directly behind Jeremy Alcoba on the number 52 machine, who sits second. Alcoba covers the middle ground and then moves out to the outside to make sure there's no way through there.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a quieter race so far for Fernandez and Nepa in that front group, but now they've got Agura between them, they might have to get a little bit more involved. So I think Agura definitely wants to be right at the front of this group and fighting it out there. So he's collected it up pretty well. Looks like Nepa's maybe struggling a little bit more to just stay on the back of this group. Obviously the pace is pretty hot, and yeah, he's just hopefully going to be able to get back into that rhythm and tag on to them. Hopefully the slipstream will help here and we can keep this big fight for the win.
Coming through to complete lap number 11 then, starting another lap, and it's looking good for Manuel Pagliacci at the moment from pole position. It was a bit of a difficult break for him, but he's managed to work his way back to the front, and then he's dominated this race since then. A couple of challenges have come and gone, most notably Agura, who looked fast for a stage, but got it all wrong last time around and ended up dropping to the tail end of this lead group. A lead group of 7, although as Fran said, it's starting to develop into a bit of a lead group for 6, because Nepa's being left ever so slightly in the front 4 trying to break away, as the number 52, again, Jeremy Alcoba, attacking on the tail of Wong Tananon, who sits in second. And all of this fight for second position has enabled Pagliacci to break ever so slightly away. It's not enough at the moment to consider it a real break, but he's just giving himself a little bit of daylight with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, definitely, but now the man on his tail is Wong Tananon. We'll have to see. He's great style, really spectacular to watch, and yeah, he seems pretty intent on having a crack at this, so it's great to see him really back up the sharp end. And then obviously the Estrella Galicia machines as well, staying fairly close on their tail, but there is a little bit of daylight now between them and Agura, so I'll have to see if the Japanese rider can close that down.
Sergio Garcia thinking about a move down the inside of Jeremy Alcoba, but Alcoba in turn has made a move on Wong Tananon. Looked to me as though Wong Tananon got a little bit out of sorts going in there to turn number 10, went offline and ended up down in 3rd position, as you said though. Agura, his disastrous lap, dropping him a second back from this lead quartet now, and it's starting to look as though we have a 4-way fight now for the podium positions, barring any errors in this lead group, which is entirely possible. They're so tightly packed together within half a second of one another as the clock ticks down once again, and 4 laps will be remaining, and it's Manuel Pagliacci who leads the way ahead of Jeremy Alcoba in second position. Sergio Garcia and Wong Tananon going side by side now. It's Garcia who comes through into 3rd position, and Wong Tananon slipping back on that last lap or so.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, Ogura now, there's a little bit of daylight there. And also Raul Fernandez has dropped off the lead of the race as well. So he'll really want to push on and stay as close to Pagliacci as possible, because he's got that 20-point lead. But 20 points get swallowed up fairly quickly when the fight at the front is sort of, 7-8 guys. So he's definitely one of those who'll want to move through again. But then Nepa got Ogura on the straight in the slipstream. So we'll have to see. I imagine Ogura will fight back pretty quickly and try and make sure he's the guy trying to close that gap.
As for the lead quartet, the fight at the moment is between Sergio Garcia and Jeremy Alcoba. Garcia bumped his way past. Alcoba's now done the same to recover second position. And while these two are knocking spots off one another, Manuel Pagliacci's rubbing his hands together and saying, thank you very much. More or less another 10th game there through sector number 2. And Pagliacci keeping it clean out in front. That's been the key for him so far.
Yeah, he just looks so solid. Obviously he's led most of it. A few times the lead's exchanged, but he's taken it straight back. He just looks like he's really in control of it. It's not really, he's not pushing on too hard, nothing too crazy, just leading, keeping that rhythm and making sure he's got the lead of the race and keeping it under control. So it's a really great race for him, and it's exactly what he needs, like I say, to try and close that gap in the championship.
Here's this secondary group you were talking about, Fran, led by Stefano Nepa in 5th position. Ayagura tucked up directly behind. Raul Fernandez has managed to bridge that gap to rejoin these two directly ahead of him, and he's brought Marc Garcia with him. We have a 4-way fight now for 5th position, a 4-way fight for the podium place at the top of the field. Looks as though Fernandez is on the move here. He's going to try and overhaul Ayagura. Agura going backwards as we see a fight for the race lead developing as well. They're 3 abreast now into turn number 1, and Pagliacci stuck on the outside line. Alcoba comes through the pit touch, and Pagliacci's going to go off the circuit altogether. Managed to just stay on the edge of the gravel there, but it looks as though our 4-way fight for the lead has now become 3, has forced off the racing line and forced off the track altogether. Manuel Pagliacci drops to the back of the secondary group now in 8th.
Yeah, definitely. That was a bit of a moment there. I really thought he was going to be heading for the gravel there, but super impressive. Just about got it to stop and sit it up a bit more before he ended up in the gravel there. You don't want to be motocrossing in this situation at all. You lose even more time. But he did really well to collect that up. Obviously, just got blocked out on the outside there. A bit of a wobble, and yeah, it's a shame for him. Now we'll have to see if he can really bridge that gap, because like you said, he's in that second group still, but there is a fair amount of daylight between the two now, and we only have 3 laps to go. So I think, barring any disasters, these 3 guys looking at each other all now, squaring it up. Barring any disasters or last-minute drama at the front, I think we have the guys who will be on the podium. Just in what order?
Well, we'll wait and see if Cursor, the commentator, messes all of that up as the number 52, Jeremy Alcoba, thinks about a move on Sergio Garcia. These two have been really had their elbows out during this race and sort of fighting their way through to the front. We're going to see it again here. The number 96 gets stranded up on the outside line, Pagliacci. He clips the back of the number 52, Jeremy Alcoba, and that sends him skyward out towards the outside line. But as you said, Fran, a good save, and he is at least going to be able to bank some decent points for this from this one. He's at the tail of the group, and if he does manage to regroup, he may be able to salvage something even better than that in the couple of laps that are remaining. We're back with the leading group, the top 3. It's Sergio Garcia who leads us, Jeremy Alcoba in 2nd, Wantananon in 3rd, and then a bit of a gap to Nepa, who is leading that group behind. And I did say that the number 96 will be moving through, and Pagliacci is fighting his way back through towards the front of that group, and he's down the inside now of Raul Fernandez and recovering 5th position.
Yeah, obviously after that drama, the good news for him is that his key championship rival is in the same group that he is, so he can still even not lose ground to him, although obviously he's going to be really frustrated with that having happened and not now being in the fight for the win. But that's the good part of it. He's right with Fernandez now, so he can either do some serious damage limitation or even still make a gain on its key championship rival at this stage in the season. That's
a very impressive series of passes he's managed to put in to get to the front of that group, managing to pass 4 or 5 riders there, in fact, to do so. And Pagliacci might be left with a little bit too much to do to try and take a place on the podium, but he's certainly putting in a determined effort. And if these two rough one another up again in the closing stages, Alcoba and Garcia, there might be an opportunity for him to recover a podium place. But these two, as we said earlier on, they've been looking over their shoulder as notification comes through of a shortcut from the number 20, Jose Julian Garcia, who's well down the order, as these two fight between themselves over top spot, the 52 and the 11. Maybe, just maybe, it's Wantananon who's the outsider in 3rd watching on.
Yeah, definitely. I think Wantananon also got a little bit less to lose. not quite in the same place in the championship as the other two, the Estrella Galicia bikes that he's racing here. So that will be interesting. Bit more of a loose cannon, bit wilder, very spectacular. But yeah, obviously we saw there, like we were saying, track limits. Obviously there's an advantage being gained there between turn 1 and 2. So I imagine he's just gone in a bit hot and then run straight over the curbs and cut that corner a bit. So 1.4 seconds, fairly specific, but that's obviously what he must have gained. But, no news for any of those penalties for anyone else in the top position, so that's always good, because last year was very dramatic here. Oh, 1.8 seconds, okay. So a little bit more.
Alcoba manages to fight his way back against Sergio Garcia. These two swapping and changing positions. Montanon in third, Pagliacci with a new personal best lap on the last lap around 1:49.9. He's gained about just under a second on the group in front of him. He's still a second in arrears though. That might be too much to recover on the final lap, but he may get close to third at very least. It's we're into the final lap now, and this is where the big moves are going to be made for the race lead. It's Alcoba out in front. He's got track position advantage. There's only 0.3 of a second covering the top three, and you can see it quite clearly. Pagliacci breaking away from the rest of the group. He looks settled in fourth position, but these top three positions are anything but settled.
Yeah, definitely. I think Pagliacci now will be hoping there's some drama and some serious battling up ahead so he can close in on them. Really, really impressive recovery, and he's really closing in on them. Montanon looks like he's struggling a little bit more to stay with those two guys, and saw a little bit of a wobble there a second ago. So it looks like it may be an Estrella Galicia duel for the win here. But yeah, you can see Montanon there looking over his shoulder and really didn't want to see that 96 as close as it is, I imagine.
These two
getting pretty close there. These two, I think, are going for it, aren't they?
To Estrella Galicia bikes, 9th and 10th in the championship coming into this race. It's going to be a bumper haul of points as long as they don't bump one another in the closing stages here. It's Alcoba out in front, Garcia in second position, breaking from Montanon. It's a head-to-head duel. It's going to be a slipstream battle to the line. It's Alcoba who runs very, very wide and possibly even incurring the wrath of the stewards. We'll wait and see on that one. Alcoba in the drag race to the line, leads Garcia, but it looks as though Garcia may have just snatched it, and he certainly thinks so. And Sergio Garcia comes through on the final turn to hit Jeremy Alcoba. The rest of the group filtering through. Montanon holds on to third position in the end, despite another new fastest lap of the race on the final lap there from Manuel Pagliacci. A highly creditable effort from the Italian, who started on pole, led for much of the race, got roughed up by those two junior Team Estrella Galicia riders, who end up finishing in first and second positions. And it almost looked as though there was some team riding at one stage there as they went side by side, and Pagliacci got crowded out really on the outside line into turn number 1. An heroic effort from Pagliacci to recover back through. He eventually takes fourth position, and I was going to say he was leading the best of the rest, but he managed to break quite clear from the best of the rest in the end, and pulling 1.5 seconds clear of Stefano Nepper. Big story in that one, Raul Fernandez, who was the championship leader coming into that race, who's finished in the top 2 positions in each of the last 2 races. Well, he was down in 8th position with Denis Onchu and Chan Onchu. Highly creditable effort from the very back row of the grid to come through for 10th position. But can't underestimate enough the real fight, the combative nature of that race between Sergio Garcia and Jeremy Alcoba. Franz nipped down to get some reaction from our race winner. I said that it was the final lap that it was all going to go off, and it did indeed. Sergio Garcia fighting his way through. The riders with good spirit after that one. There was some outstanding racing, and they all managed to keep it more or less clean as well. We did have a touch between Pagliacci and Alcoba. Alcoba seized the race lead and the advantage from that, but it was Garcia in the closing stages. Alcoba just got it a little bit wrong on the right-hander towards the end of the lap, running off wide on the circuit, and Garcia got his wheels in line nicely, and Pounce coming off the final turn, taking it in the drag race down to the line. So just over 1/100th of a second separating Sergio Garcia and Jeremy Alcoba, the teammates, at the end of 16 laps in race number 1. And let's hope that the action for the remainder of the day, 4 more races to come here, of course, in Barcelona. And let's hope that the action fulfills the promise of that first race of the day. A spectacular celebration from Sergio Garcia. He's got plenty to be pleased about there, setting hot pace in the closing stages, the lead group. And Manuel Pagliacci, particularly impressive in terms of pace, and one wonders if he tried to use that pace and break away earlier in the race, perhaps he may have been able to avoid the chaos that ended up ensuing in the closing stages between himself and Alcoba. Riders making their way back into pit lane now, and your podium trio, Wongtananon in third position, Alcoba in second, and Garcia absolutely outstanding out in front to manage to come through and take the checkered flag. Pagliacci taking fourth position, heroic effort from him, as I've already said. Ayagura was up there and battling as well, but he ends up 3.5 seconds back from the lead. 6th, 7th and 8th positions developing their own group in the closing few laps there, and we saw the race splinter off. We had the top 9 break early on, and then we dropped a couple off the back, and it became a 7-rider group. Well, that further filtered down, and we're going to have an opportunity now to take a look at the official results of race number 1 in the Moto3 Junior World Championship here at the FIM CEV Repsol. It's Sergio Garcia who takes the checkered flag, but less than a second covering the top 4. Alcoba in second, Wongtananon third, Pagliacci outstanding, but only gets the points for 4th position in the end from pole, defending the race lead for much of that race. Chan On-Chu, highly creditable effort for him to take 10th position. Somkiat Chantra was up there and challenging in the top places early on, eventually relegated down to 12th. And Jari Montella is the last of the point scorers in 15th position, the Italian, 10 seconds back from the race lead, but leading a three-way fight for the last of those championship points, with Barry Baltus at the back of that group in 17th position, having started from the very back of the grid, 44th place. Rest of the finishers filtering their way through, and these are all non-scorers, of course, finishing outside of the top 15, but one rider who certainly finished inside the top 15, Sergio Garcia.
Bueno, Sergio, increíble la carrera de hoy, y especialmente después de lo que pasó en Valencia, con la victoria y la caída, ¿cómo te sientes?
Bueno, sí, ha sido una carrera muy complicada desde el principio, he padecido mucho, pero al final he sabido gestionar las posiciones en las últimas vueltas y me ha dado la victoria. Estoy muy contento después de la lesión en Valencia y bueno, a seguir.
Perfecto. ¿Y para la segunda carrera?
Intentar hacer lo mismo.
Gracias.
So your race winner, Sergio Garcia, says he was able to manage that race, control that race in the closing stages, and that's what brought him to victory, recovering well from an injury that he sustained in Valencia, and says that his expectations and hopes for the next race are to try and do exactly the same. It was Garcia who made the early break. He and Alcoba battling it out. Pagliacci managed to hit the front, but he was wayward in the closing stages and pushed aside by Jeremy Alcoba. It's Team Sergio Garcia 1 and 2, as we leave you with some of the best images from Moto3 and how that race unfolded. Your podium trio, Sergio Garcia, Jeremy Alcoba and Wongtananon third. Back to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya for the podium celebrations then Wong in third position, Alcoba in second, and Sergio Garcia, your race winner. Outstanding efforts from all three of them. Wong just losing pace in the closing stages there after a very strong first sector on the final lap. He was unable to keep with the top two, and then it was up to Sergio Garcia to make the launch on the final lap to find his way through up the inside of Jeremy Alcoba, and in the drag race down to the line by less than a tenth of a second to take the race victory. Third position then, well celebrated there by Wong and well, it should be indeed. Down in 21st position in the championship with only 4 points scored in Le Mans last time out coming into this race. Fran already said previously that Wong a little bit out of it in terms of the championship fight, but this will be a morale booster and a confidence booster for him. Jeremy Alcoba now receiving the plaudits for second position. Now, he had a podium finish in Valencia, a third place, had a non-scoring ride in Estoril, so has ground to make up in the context of the championship. But a second place finish here today, a step forward after somewhat underwhelming races, race 2 in Valencia and a 7-point score in Le Mans. So that fires Jeremy Alcoba back up and into the championship context, but not nearly as much as Sergio Garcia with his statement of intent and a second race victory of the season. I said at the top of today's programme that it was win or bust for him. It was win here today.
Ok, doncs enhorabona per Sergio Garcia, que vuelve de la lesión.
So many congratulations to Sergio Garcia then, who takes top spot here in Barcelona, the winner of race 1 in Valencia. He hasn't scored in the other 3 races this season, so he did have ground to make up in the championship overall. He moves on to 50 championship points, and in the end, a damage limitation ride for both Raul Fernandez and Manuel Pagliacci. Pagliacci making up some ground there with 4th position compared to 8th position for Raul Fernandez, but the gap between them stood at 20 points coming into this race. So this championship far from settled as we head towards the mid-season phase, of course, in the majority of these categories. And now it's time for champagne. Champagne and celebrations then for the 2 junior team Estrella Galicia riders, but it is still Raul Fernandez who tops the championship on 86 points. Pagliacci in second position now on 71, and Sergio Garcia is the man on the move. That race victory moving him up into third position, but a close group there from third position down. 9 points covering 3rd to 8th places in the series standings overall. So race 1 complete then in the FIM CEV Repsol, the first of 2 races in the Moto3 Junior World Championship here in Barcelona this weekend. And outstanding action throughout that one. It really kicked off in the closing laps, but we had a group fight for the majority of it as well, with plenty of riders in contention, including the championship leader, current championship leader, who already had the advantage coming into that one. But on the evidence of that race in particular, it's not going to be easy for him to fight back onto the podium in race 2, and the championship lead very much under threat for Raul Fernandez. We heard from Fran earlier on saying that a 20-point lead can very quickly be eaten up. Well, that was somewhat prescient, because a bulk of that has been wiped away in race 1 here in Barcelona.